So could you state your full name, your occupation, and tell me why you decided to run for the school board?
Sure. Daniel Zebulon Feldman. Everybody calls me Zeb. And I work for Operating Engineers Local 3, which is a union, at one of their associations called SEMA, County Employee Management Association, that operates out of the South Bay, specifically Santa Clara County. My title is Principal Contract Negotiator, and I run the San Jose office and lead a team of union representatives called business representatives largely. And we negotiate and enforce collective bargaining agreements or contracts on behalf of working class families. Oh, and why I decided to run? Well, I was approached by a couple of folks to see if I had any interest in running. There was some interest on behalf of the Democratic Party, as well as some colleagues who are in local elective office to see if I was at all interested. They wanted to have some Democrats run. It turns out there's a fair number of Democrats running, so that was sort of unknown at the time. And it seemed like a good time to run, that there was some leadership and hopefully some budgetary expertise as well as contract negotiation expertise that was needed on the board, and perhaps a little bit of a fresh perspective as well. So I thought that I could bring that to the table with my history, not only as a long-term resident, but also as an immigrant. I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico, immigrated here when I was 0 and naturalized at about the age of 9. So I think I have not only a long-term relationship with Menlo Park, East Palo Alto, and the Stanford community, as well as Santa Clara, where I did my undergrad work, but also just having lived here for the past decade in East Palo Alto specifically, in this school district, I thought that I could bring that perspective as well.
What do you see as the most pressing issue facing the Ravenswood City School District, and what specifically would you do to address it if you're elected?
Sure. I think providing quality education to all of our children. And I realize those are very vague terms, right? What does quality mean? Well, for me, quality means that the education is holistic. It's whole person, right? Not only do we need to provide education for the mind to prepare people for both college and non-college tracks. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Hopefully there's a question about that. But also to make sure that our children are cared for in terms of a safety sense, in terms of a psychological sense, and also in a body sense, right? We need to make sure that everybody has great nutrition that is available for everybody, regardless of economic means, at the school. And a lot of people talk about access to education or access to healthcare or access to nutrition. I'm not talking about access. I'm talking about actually getting it. And that's true too with our social services and psychological services that are offered at the school as well. So of course, education's job one. And I think that has to be front and center. And I would certainly make that my mission while if elected. But also we have to realize that there are different folks that are going to either be going for a college track or they're going to be going for a non-college track. And there's plenty of ways to make that very economically and spiritually rewarding in both tracks. And I think that that's somewhat neglected. Apologies, that's my dogs in the background here. I'm going to mute myself. Apologies. And so I also think that would be the top priority, right? Is to make sure that we are providing full, comprehensive, quality education and care to our children. And a piece of that is constantly looking around to other schools, other countries, but other schools as well, jurisdictions within the country that are doing a better job than we are, and learning from those successes and failures and integrating it into our system continuously. A continuous process improvement, not just one seminar once a decade or something, but that's baked into the culture of the district.
Can you describe one key decision the board should make that would help district students improve their academic performance?
Why I'm taking a moment to think about it is there are many things that can happen at a state level that are helpful, but probably outside the jurisdiction of the school board itself formally. So a single action that the board can take So this is something within the board's purview. Enhancing what I'll call secondary services, I'm sure there's a better name for it, the secondary services of the district itself. So what I mentioned earlier, to provide that total education experience where psychological services, cleanliness of the classroom, investment in technology and remote services, that looking at all the support services in addition to the teachers, that all of the support services are fully funded and at a top-notch level to enable learning. So I think really looking at those secondary services is key.
The school district and the school board have been involved in numerous controversies in recent years, including facing fiscal insolvency and a vote of no confidence in the last superintendent who was forced to resign. How would you, as a board member, build trust in the school community?
Sure. I have a dozen years of professional and personal experience in contract negotiations involving labor unions, management, the community-based organizations, as well as a myriad of stakeholders. So I think it's a matter of knitting all of those together. And that's doesn't mean you're going to satisfy everybody, right? But it means that you have real participation and real decision-making that's allowed between the PTA, teachers, students, staff, ancillary staff, management, and that by getting all of the issues out and publicly aired, you're going to be able to resolve, or I've had great success over the past 12 years, dozen years, resolving those issues through whether it's mediation, just talking about things, interest-based bargaining, and then really putting an action plan together. So I think step one is to make sure that we understand what all the old wounds are and identifying them, and then coming up with communal responses and solutions, and making sure that those are implemented and owned by everybody. We don't all always agree with whatever the decision is that's reached by a community or a neighborhood, or in this case, a school board. But if everybody's had a say, the likelihood of success is that much better. And I've seen that, things haven't quite been done as transparently as possible or with as much buy-in or participation from all parties. And so then you have disenfranchised groups that have no interest in seeing the solutions implemented. So that's something that I think would really help not only heal some of the old wounds and controversies, but get them out in the open, discuss them, and then move on.
Ravenswood has been battling declining enrollment for several years now and a corresponding drop in state funding. If elected, what would you do to address this?
Sure. So I think there are several things. First off, I think we have to make sure that we're partnering with our local fundraisers. And what does that mean? Well, we have a lot of communities in our backyard, right? We have a lot of corporations, Google, Stanford. Stanford's not a nonprofit corporation, right? But it's a corporation nonetheless, a nonprofit organization, if not corporation, depending on what element of Stanford you're talking about. Facebook, many other philanthropists, the residents themselves, right? We all have an ability to raise funds locally. I'm not talking about increased taxes. I'm talking about fundraising beyond, where we have a real partnership for the school through itself, its community, and the corporate residents that are within to raise funds. So that's one possibility, as well as joining with other local richer or wealthier districts as well is helpful. So that's number one. We'll be able to, it's not necessarily a top priority, but more funds is always going to be helpful and allow us to provide a broader menu. Also, you may know from past interviews and also my candidate statement that will be appearing in the ballot, I am opposed to charter schools. I know actually I've been pressured by some groups to soften that stance. I'm really not interested in that. I do believe that charter schools are a bad idea. I believe that it does sap, as you point out, declining enrollment. It saps strength from the public system, and it creates kind of a two-track system where we have one charter school element that can be supplemented by some families who maybe have the means or resources, and that means money and time spent at home, making sure that the children are able to have a quiet, clean place to study. Resources, whether that means a computer or it actually means tutors or it means dollars that you can spend on things. That's important as well. I think that it creates a two-track system. You have the charter track where parents have more resources, time, funds, computers, iPads, whatever it might be. And then you have the public system, which is facing lower enrollment and greater funding challenges. So I think that scaling back on the charter system will help the public system, and that will allow us to build a school that helps everybody, that educates everybody, not just the college bound or just the non-college bound, but the whole community.
Are you firmly opposed to charter schools, or is there a way in which if an application came before the board and you were elected, or a renewal of a facilities agreement, are you firmly against charter schools in any way, or is there a world in which you see a healthy way to coexist with public schools?
Sure. I almost never deal in absolutes, so I wouldn't say never ever will I vote for something that might enhance a funding for a charter school system, but I'm being very transparent about my predisposition against charter schools. So if a charter school wanted to renew, if they wanted additional funding for whatever reason, or a new charter school came, my predisposition is going to be, I oppose charter schools. I'm not for this. Okay, give me the best argument as to why this is essential, why this helps the children of the district. If it does, absolutely, I'd vote for it. So it's not simply a charter school appears before me, no vote, automatic. But I'm going to have a heavy skepticism and really be looking with a critical eye at anything that's presented.
Is there anything else you'd like the voters to know about you?
Sure. So a little bit on more personal level, for me, as I mentioned, I grew up in a very privileged area. I grew up in the Los Lomitas School District, which is across town in Sharon Heights of Menlo Park. We were what's called a basic aid district, which got to keep its tax funds local and had extraordinary fundraising through the PTA. I then went locally to Menlo Atherton, go Bears, right? And that was a great melting pot, right? It was everybody, at the time, East Palo Alto, Redwood City, Menlo Park, Portola Valley, Woodside, all coming. Everybody in the community of all creeds, races, socioeconomic classes, coming together and learning side by side. And that was an amazing experience for me, one that I certainly didn't get at Los Lomitas. At Los Lomitas, I love the experience, don't get me wrong. Great education, didn't want for anything in the school district. But it was also, you're looking to your left and there's, the son or daughter of a doctor, and you look to your right and there's the son or daughter of a tech millionaire or Sand Hill Road investment banker or something like that. And there just wasn't that rich tapestry that I got to experience at Menlo Atherton. And I think that really reflects our district, right? That we have the new folks that have come in that are pretty well moneyed from whatever their source of income is. And then we have the residents who've been here a little bit longer who, were able to purchase a house or started renting a house when rents and purchase prices were much more affordable. So I think we have to blend both of those together. And I have the experience here and I've lived it and I understand it. I know what it is to have English as a second language. I went through that, as I mentioned, coming here from Mexico, learning to speak English, of course, right? But that became my primary language. And yeah, I think that most people don't know that about me. And certainly as I'm being introduced to the voters, nobody would have reason to know that about me. Something else that I'd like to state is I know labor is not particularly strong, labor meaning unions, is not particularly potent in this particular city in East Palo Alto, but I do have a strong labor background. And I was recently endorsed by a couple of labor organizations, which I think will bring some calm and expertise as well, should I be lucky enough to prevail.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for the chance. And for anyone who's able to view, I really am asking for your vote. So thank you for spending your time to tune into this. Okay, I actually forgot to mention this. Apprenticeship programs is also something that I think is extremely important. It's never too early to start thinking about this. I've been talking a lot about college bound and non-college bound. If you're not college bound, that's the majority of the American population. And it's so critical to understand that there are lucrative careers out there that really don't involve a college degree. And I think we really need to have an established apprenticeship program where you can talk to operating engineers, you can talk to, the pipe fitters or the iron workers and become a master electrician or an expert, make a very respectable living and have a career for the rest of your life that's going to be not only nourishing, provide economic security for you and your family, and allow you to achieve the American dream. So I really think that that's key for us to be able to offer as well and have those partnerships with the folks that can offer apprenticeships. Thank you.